Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, it's the Mother's Day weekend update. It's Saturday morning of Mother's Day weekend, and it's a glorious one again. The sun is out, the PSGF is going to warm up soon, and we've got a lot of projects in the works. But before we show you some of the projects and updates on those, today it's all about the trees. We've done a lot of moving, shifting, bonsai shuffling, and we're going to show you the trees today and see what's going on. We start today with the cabin cold frame neck of the woods, and everything's of course out of the cold frame, and we're ready to grow. We've got a couple of trays of larches. I order larches, a couple hundred every season. I do some large workshops with some folks in the area. And these are last year's trees, getting a little bit bigger and a little bit thicker. And this is this year's batch, all ready to go. So they'll put out branches this year, and next year they'll be looking more like a tree than a whole bunch of sticks in pots. We're gonna do an update with Jacob pretty soon. And look at Jacob's tree, yeah. So this is one of the cotoneasters I got a couple years back, and Jake and I will work on this tree. So here's the cotoneaster, shooting up tons of growth. Thing already flowered once this year. It's getting some fruit down there, and we're gonna cut that back whenever he's feeling ready to cut the tree. Who knows when. We got another cotoneaster here. This is the one I've been working on, the most recent, and this one's got some berries on it as well. Already flowered a little bit. I can't see that with your camera angle, but there's my cotoneaster. So you can tell mine's a little bit smaller. It's in a smaller pot, and I have trimmed it already this early spring just to kind of set the growth for that one. In front of me, I have a couple of new trees that I got from Eric over at Bonsai. I'm really looking forward to these trees. So these are Washington hawthorns. And so these are some Washington hawthorn starters that I got from Eric last year. And they have a beautiful fall foliage color. The color in these are fantastic. And when they start off with their new growth, it's got a really nice red hue to it. The sun might be too bright to pick up on the hues today, but it's real nice and red when they first come out. And then they turn into their beautiful green, and they're gonna be a really nice fall color. So it's gonna add some really good color to my collection and anybody else that I get these trees to here over the course of the next year. And then down below here, we've got one of my many forests. This is one of the Siberian Elm forests, looking a little bit scraggly right now. We've already had some growth, and then we had some cold temperatures and a few pieces of dieback on a couple of trees. This tree's been struggling, but that one's still got a ways to go. We'll let that one shoot up all kinds of growth this year. So that one's tucked away. My Siberian elms do like to have a little bit of partial shade, I have found out, so they're doing well. So let's move on to the other side here of the cabin. We're at about mid-morning, so the sunshine is right there in all its glory, making this a super hot corner. We've got another forest down here. This is one of my Siberian elms that really flushed out nice this year. Up here is the weeping Chinese elm from Candace. And so this thing's putting out all kinds of new growth up here, gaining several inches here. We have a couple more forests over here as well. I have some Zelkovas, big Zelkova forest there on the right side, and on the left side is another Zelkova forest. A little bit of weak growth on this one up here. It's alive. We got really small leaves on here, but we're keeping it alive, and it's going to do fine, and it'll grow up and shoot up just like this in the near future. There's also some in the back that didn't grow as ferociously as well. So it's interesting how these two tree sections really took off, and a couple slower ones, but they're alive and doing fine. And this guy right here is just super lush. We got so much growth in there. Now, with this much growth, light won't be able to get in the inside branches, so we'll have a lot of thin, leggy growth in there. So eventually we'll have to thin this out to let it grow really crazy for the rest of the summer. So there is two Zelkova forests, Siberian, and a nice elm tree. Let's move on. So just to the east of the cabin cold frame, I have a bench that has a couple of the big old trees that we're hoping to do great things this year. This is one of the barberries I got from my dad from his yard a couple years back. And this has got a really crazy gnarly bottom trunk here, really kind of fun and old. I probably will try to get rid of this at some point, carve it down a little bit more, but I love this dead branch coming off here. And these two kind of fuse together. So this is kind of died over here, but the life of the tree is over here. So it's very bizarre looking. got some new growth down here, some suckers being shot up. We'll clean that up and have fun with it, but I do love the deadness and the alive. This thing is telling a story. It's just not done yet. And so I'm just gonna leave it alone this year and let it continue to grow, and maybe just cut back some of these leaders here in a couple of weeks. Again, we'll see when time allows. I got this fun little boxwood here. This was the mother-daughter tree, and we lost the daughter. We lost the son, father, son, mother, daughter. A bummer, but the rest of it's shooting up new growth. It's got a kind of a fun little lean to it, and this little trunk here this little root here will probably cut off in the future now. We'll see. There's one back here as well, but doing fine in the pot. Here's the big boxwood that I picked up a couple years ago with my friend Steve. And it's looking kind of fun. The bottom has shown some of its kind of flare now, and it's almost like hollowed out a little bit here to show these roots a little bit better now. Very interesting bottom to that one. And it's got the hole here where the critters are living. Maybe got an owl in there. And then we've got some new young growth here. This is just gonna flush out. I'm not gonna cut anything on this spring. I'm just gonna let it flush out completely. We'll trim it up in the fall to set the growth for next year. So this one we're gonna pretty much not touch. And this one over here in the shade we'll bring out in the sun is one of my collection of miscellaneous trees from Henry. Henry, everything's doing fine. We got a willow tree in there. I'm not sure what else is in there. A pussy willow type tree and some other miscellaneous stuff. So let's move on. These trees are looking good on the bench right now. We're just outside the passive solar green frame where the sun is not quite above the neighbor's tree yet, so these will start to get their full sun here in just a little while. But this is one of my original junipers that was in my Sarah Rayner pot that cracked last year. So we have this guy coming down around here, and it's a big old cascading tree. And now it's not. And so now we've got some movement to the trunk going over zigzagging this way and this way. And it's kind of fun, and a lot of people commented that they like it better now than it used to be. So there you go, not too bad. And here is one of my little spruces. So this is a bird's nest spruce, I believe, that I chopped up just the other, I should say other month now, because it was in April. And so we put this in a new pot. We have this big old thick trunk, and I've had some comments about people with these two. You know, I had the deadwood here, the gin we created, and I said, should I get rid of that? Should I get rid of this whole branch? And some people said, don't get rid of that branch. And some people said, maybe you should get rid of it. I do like on the back side here, look at all the new growth back here. So it's alive on this branch, and we can make it all compact and see where it grows. I've been told with these trees too that people responded a lot of interesting top growth on these, where you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shoots growing out at the tips. So you got to keep an eye on them. And so I'll be learning how it grows this year, because it's a pretty new species for me. But look at all the growth over here. Look at all that really beautiful light green growth. So super healthy over here. Everything's alive and kicking. And we've still got some growth over here as well. So if this happens to die off, I debated cutting this one off anyway. So we'll let it grow. We'll see how it backbuds. We'll compact it all a little bit more again later on this year in the fall, and we'll let it shoot out for more growth next year. So nice to see the bird's nest spruce kicking up all kinds of new growth. I love that light lime green against the old growth. Fantastic. We're out in front of the PSGF now, where I have 2 trees that I'm just letting grow this spring again. And one of them here is the trident maple. Now we're looking for some branching right out here and maybe up top here. And so we're gonna take one of these new growths here, and after these leaves harden off, we're gonna go ahead and thread graft this in the next couple of weeks and get a couple of thread grafts and hope they take, because we have a little bit of weakness on this side where there's no branches. But it's growing super nice and long and flush in all those areas. That's nice to see all that growth on the trident. This is the one with my nice thick nabari down here that's always looking good. We just got to have the branches up top now starting to take shape. So there is the trident maple there. Should take my speaker off here so you can kind of see through it. But there you go. Trident maple with all kinds of new growth where I want it. Just I got to get a couple of branches out here with a thread graft. So that's super nice. And then over here is the amber maple. So this is the amber maple that I just got into its first bonsai pot this year after harvesting it, I think 2 or 3 years ago now, with my friend Steve of the Minnesota Bonsai Society. All kinds of lovely new growth on this, just shooting up growth everywhere. So this is the tree where if you just let it grow now, you don't see any of the chop points on this anymore, hardly at all. There's a chop point right above my finger here. There's a chop point right here that you can't see anymore now when you're looking at it from the front. But you'll notice, look at all of the sucker growth down here. Now, that's taken off probably too much energy out of the growth of this tree, but everything's growing so lush and well, and I haven't had time to work on this tree, so I've just left it alone. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna clean up some of this stuff down here, and we got this big new growth down here. We might even keep that branch, I'm not sure. We've got two trunks down here that are competing against each other, so when the leaves are gone, it's not the prettiest silhouette of the world, but when the tree's growing all the leaves and it looks all nice and flush, when you look at it from this standpoint, right in here, and you got these three trunks, triple trunks tangling with each other, it looks like a really thick old clump of trees. So I really like this one. So there is the clump style 3-trunk Amur maple, really in a good spot in the yard, right in front of the PSGF, loving life, growing ferociously. Continuing our move from left to right, we have the forest of collected larches up in the bogs of northern Minnesota, and all the trees are alive. So we've gotten some amazing young spring growth up here now. So this tall tree, again, we're trying to make this to be more of an old growth forest. And so this is a big old tree with all the growth up here, more rounded canopy because it's an old growth tree. Hundreds of years old is what we're trying to kind of simulate, even though this one's probably only about 30. And we got all these little ones up here that have a little bit more of that conical shape, but even the one back there that struggled to keep its shape all last year as far as solidness back in the tree, back in the forest here, we got a rock holding it up still, but that's doing really well. These little one back here, this guy here, all of these trees, phenomenal growth on the larch. So we'll trim that up pretty soon. And let it go for a second and probably a third flush this year as well. We can get 3 trims on our larches in the year, at least where I'm at. So I have a couple other spruce trees. I forget the exact spruce this is. I want to say Black Hill spruce. That's what this one is. This is a Black Hill spruce. Look at all the new buds on this Black Hill spruce. And what's nice is all the growth down here too. All this is back budding on a spruce tree. So this could become the future of this tree down in here. There's a big clump up here. This has all got to go. This is kind of an ugly thick top. But look at all the fresh growth on here. We are just popping out of the shell that holds the needles in on some of these. Just love that. And all this, you know, we've got almost an inch now. They're shooting up, a couple of them. So fantastic to see how thick this one is. Don't have it in a pot or anything yet, but I saw a couple of these on discount last year and thought they were just fantastic. Moving over a little bit more now, we have the 40-year-old ficus tree that is now outside. And as you can see, in the early to mid-morning, no sunshine until about the middle of the day, actually, until it gets over the pine tree and the neighbor's big maple tree. So, but this has been outside for a couple of days now. We've had rain, we've had sun, and we've got all kinds of new growth shooting up on this guy every which way. So we're just gonna let this thicken up this summer, and we'll trim that back. And then over there is one of my bigger larch trees. This is the one I worked on with Peter T, and we had pretty much stumps on from the bottom level up. We're all stumps 2 years ago, and now it's starting to look like a tree again. So phenomenal to see this thing catching up now and shooting up some really nice growth. You can see some of these really big 1+ inch new growths there, all facing up towards that sun. So we'll trim that up a couple times this year as well, as it's a larch, and we'll get 2 or 3 flushes of growth. So I've placed the big ash stump here behind my bench to the east of the PSGF, and here is the big box that we put in the red pines in, that we dug out of the Bonsai Acres farm area. So I've got these trees in a box now. We've got this young growth down here that has a bud that's still shooting up and still viable, so very excited about that future of this tree. But you can see on all these branches right here, we've got about 1 inch bud growth all over here, and a couple of dozen on both trees. And they're in 3s and 4s, and we'll be separating those out as it grows. So we just put it into bonsai soil from the ground, harvesting this spring, and everything's really shooting up and really nice. So we left the wire on. It's gonna keep growing over here, and we'll get it in full sun here pretty quick. We've got some early morning harsh sun, so this is a little bit harder for you to see. Apologies for that. We have the stone slab white paper birch forest clump that is starting to finally come to. Now, this was in the garage, and this is not in a cold frame. I might try to get it in my cold frame this next year if it's big enough, or maybe even in the passive solar. Because it's got a thin layer of soil here on a slab in the garage, it freezes solid, and you have to be careful with the roots on some of our trees. Some of them can get down into the teens and lower, but when we have a polar vortex, I get worried about this tree. The maples have done fine. They're coming back and pushing out tons of growth. In the birch, we've got a tree here that's still alive, but it's struggling. This one might not do so well long term, so it could be a dying tree in the birch forest. But we still have these 3 younger suckers in here. If we get rid of this one right here, then we're still left with a 6 forest. The 7 right now, this one might have to go away, but we have another young sucker right here. Very typical for a birch tree to throw up all kinds of suckers. So as these mature and some of them die, we'll have young ones growing, and who knows what kind of forest we'll end up with. This one also is a little shaky up front here. This has the most white paper I was super excited about last year. So it's getting more of that papery feel. A big old branch over here that's alive, but you'll notice up here, I lost a branch right here and I lost a branch right here. So unless we shoot out some new suckers or new branches here and here somewhere this year, this one could be a curvy tree over there somewhere, but the wound, if I cut this, will be very severe, and it's in the front of the design. So this tree, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that either. I hope it survives with this whole main branch getting thicker and coming up here. We won't cut any of that off this year. And everything else in the back, showing some good growth, slow but sure. We'll get this a little bit bigger with foliage, and then you won't be able to see some of the cut points. But yeah, we got to hope for the best for these guys right here, that they might survive. This one I'm not so confident with at all anymore, but this one has this whole side nice and healthy. We'll see if we can keep that one going. So as we get to the east bench, where the sun is just kind of up here, pointing that way, we still have some fairly harsh backlighting, but we can see some of the trees here. We've got the big one with all its beautiful burgundy, purpley leaves. I'm still hoping for that bud over here. There's one that's just kind of teasing. I hope that one survives, and if I get a bud on that side, man, we are going to protect that this year. But we've got this one growing out super great on the one side. We have to try to balance that out. And then over here, we have the Minnesota Forest number 2, which is growing all the poplars. Now the big poplar is the majestic one, and it's huge and doing great. The other ones have growth as well. This one on the left side, both branches survived and are putting out some new growth. This one up here is kind of single, but it did divide into 2 up here, and it's going to grow real nice. The back one has survived. This one has got some branches, one way down low here and a couple up here, and then this back one you can't see. All those are filling up that forest really nice. So if that gets real yellow this fall against the green of the trees in the background, the pines, it's gonna really, really be nice. So we got some Dwarf spruces, which now have all their buds opened up. They're about 1/4 of an inch tall, and just everywhere on the tree. So that's gonna thicken up real nice this summer. And then even over here, the black spruces from up near my cabin and up in the bogs where we got the larch, we've got all kinds of growth here with the new buds on all these. So all of those survived this new repotting. The back one's a little bit weaker, but it's harder to see, and that one should be fine. The poplar here survived. The poplar here survived. The only one that didn't was this one, and this is the one I pulled out of the ground last year, so this was a big risk. But I have a couple other ones floating around this year that have budded out. I might do a quick transplant right here on this side to fill up this edge of the forest, because this one just didn't make it. And right next to Minnesota Forest number 2, we have the root over rock. So this is the boxwood over the rock. I added some moss that I had laying around from the cabin on here. The birds are playing around with this a little bit too much, but here is the tree. Got some fertilizer on here, and look at all the new light green growth again. So this has light green growth over all of the tree, and everything's looking really, really good. So this one's gonna just keep growing all summer long. We're gonna let this one go wild, let those roots take hold. We'll repot this in 2 more years and then cut a whole bunch more roots away. And as people had suggested on this one, we may even change the rock on this one. It's a little bit smooth of a rock. I don't know if these roots are gonna cling too much, but I envision the rock halfway buried in the ground anyway, and just having this just sitting right on top of it. And but if it's a little bit too round, we may change that out after we find what kind of roots thicken up and which ones we'll keep. But the boxwood there, looking really, really good here, the one over the rock. So next up is a tree that's kind of the mini cousin, if you will, of the bird's nest spruce. So we just showed you that a little while ago, and this one is the Nano Spruce. This Nano guy has also shot up all kinds of nice new growth. So you see all the real light lime green buds going out of there. This is that really small foliage tree, the Nano. And so really, really cool. Now there's some up here that are a little bit dry and crispy. So we're gonna have to clean this up and see what's going on. But the growth of the other parts of the tree is exciting. It's alive, it's kicking out new growth. We'll clean this thing up as we see what stays alive and what doesn't. So I'm not too concerned about it at the moment. I'm just glad to see all of the growth. Then we have my Japanese garden juniper here that's still doing just fine. It's putting on some new growth. My shari is starting to show up a little bit more down here. And yeah, it's got a nice, decent shape to it so far. And this is a Candace tree, another Japanese garden juniper with a very nice thick trunk with a gnarly little gin there. And so some nice displays on this bench of some nice conifer trees. And to kind of wrap things up today, we have the benches that are now up on my deck, and we got a whole bunch more of those larches in the trays. We've got them down lower, and we've got them up higher, and we got them over here. There's the larch logo tree. We do have one that perished. This one right here is not doing so well, so that one's a goner. But we have a nice little looking mini forest there of the logo of Bonsai Acres. We'll get that worked on this year, and a couple other trees just in clumps of 5. And then down below I have a lot of my Portulacaria afras that just came out, a lot of my new seedlings, cuttings I should say, not seedlings. All my cuttings from the last couple of years in various shapes and sizes. And we have some Zelkovas too. And you see some Zelkovas here that have a little bit of sunburn on them, so they're under this bench to get not complete direct sun right now, and they're starting to recoup, and they're going to get some nice, good new late spring, summer growth here. So the benches are filling up on the deck as well. So many trees, so few places to put them. I just took out my Drina, forest of 3, if you will. So this was the original Drina that my son, Toby, got from his 9th grade science class. And so this one is the mother tree. And I took these 2 cuttings last year from the tree and see if we could get a cutting to work on a Drina. And sure enough, look what we got. So we've got some fun little, nice thick little, almost the establishment of a Nabari down here, and it kind of comes up here, curves over here, and there's a little bit of a bump here. But it's growing super tall and healthy. These are growing with some interesting shapes. You know, they don't make a typical bonsai, but anything we can experiment with and grow and have fun with is a blast for me. So this is the Drinas. This one's kind of turned into a fun, interesting little tree, and I could cut this thing down here even further, cut it off again, and it'll grow new branches on there just fine. Cut it here. We'll see what happens on this one. The Drina. And of course, what would an update be without jumping into the passive solar green frame? So up top, real up top, we got a whole bunch of Portulacaria afras up there, all kind of those new cuttings again. We got those guys ready to grow up at the top. My big thick forest right there. Yeah, super nice. Couple of my variegateds over there. That's up on the top. And then on the back there, that is the hibiscus, everyone. So I recently opened up the bag to see if I had any roots in here, everybody. The hibiscus, thumbs down, no roots. It's still alive. It put out a whole bunch of buds on the top. It's alive. I think there's been some connecting of the cambiums, and we got to still see if that's going to maybe root this spring, summer season here. So we'll leave it alone for a while and see what happens. I might have to re-scrape again and try one more time. But all kinds of trees. We have a lot of Portulacaria afras. We have a couple of ficus trees that are over here. Getting used to being outside in the full sun. The Schefflera back here, a cutting from my mother-in-law Sue. We have some brush cherries over here in that long skinny pot. They're kind of loving life out here now. Another Portulacaria there that we defoliated to get some new little leaves for the summer growth. So here we have the cuttings from the triangulus variegated ficus tree. Look at that guy. Yeah, so staying alive there. So let's go down below here in the PSGF, and there's the mama tree. So that one's sitting down here. We're going to put that in more sun a little bit later, but this one doesn't like direct sun too much. So as long as we get a lot of light, it's going to be okay. So we got a whole bunch of cuttings back behind it. A couple of ficus trees down there, some cuttings for some PAs. Another PA that we defoliated recently is coming back with some new life. And then the ficus over the rock, yes, the tiger bark. So that's still putting out some new growth, all kinds of new little leaves up here in the tips. So those are really happy in here in the passive solar green frame. Loving life just a little bit, huh? We've got one of my Thanksgiving cactus clumps here. Well, this is actually 3 or 4 trees. So this is cuttings from my original tree, my original Thanksgiving cactus. And that original one is in here as well, getting used to the light out here. And we have this tiger bark that we flipped up on its side. There's another cutting from mother-in-law's Schefflera tree. So a lot of fun stuff. Oh, and back here by the sign, we've got the Bonsai Acre sign and our rain point system ready to plug in when I'm leaving home. There was our grapewood log with the PAs that I put in there. So let me see if I take this out. There we go. You can kind of see those trees a little bit now. They're alive. They're doing fine. It's a PA and a log. Kind of strange. More trees back there on the bench. We're full up. We're doing fine. We've got all but 10 trees outside or in the PSGF. Life is good. I need a little bit more trees from the plant room and we're all done. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this Mother's Day edition of an update show from Dave's Bonsai. Yeah, we've got spring growth galore. Everything's pushing out growth. And a few trees have got a few dead spots. We've lost a few this year, as is the case. But when you have 100 trees, as I've said before, sometimes a couple of deaths are not a horrible thing, although it all is a little bit sad. It definitely is. But we've got some great growth. I want to say a happy Mother's Day to my mom. Love you, Mom. Hope you have a really great day. This is Mother's Day weekend 2024, and the plants are loving life. So have yourself a great one. I hope you have a great rest of your spring, and summer's just around the corner, everybody. Take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you on the next one.